Oh, look, very funny. Look, it's me in my bedroom filming this months after I recorded this video because I once again forgot to say what on earth is this while I was on location. So, what on earth is this? In fact, no, it should be behind me, isn't it? So, what on earth is this? Hello there, and welcome to the Ardennes. Yes, that Ardennes of World War II fame. But also, much to the annoyance of many history buffs watching, we will not actually be talking about World War II at all in this video. Sorry about that. I'm in Luxembourg, but not that Luxembourg. I'm in the Belgian province of Luxembourg, which hilariously is actually twice the size of Luxembourg, the country. In fact, hold on. Okay, now I'm in Luxembourg, the country. So I'm in the village of Martelange, which is a border town that straddles the line between Belgium and Luxembourg, and thus is a rather pleasant little corner of both of them. And while border towns are no real rarity around the world, few are quite like Martelange, where a mess of complex history has split a village between two countries with, yes, different histories and cultures, but most notably for this example, taxation laws. So how did this happen? Well, for that, we have to go back, as always on this channel, about 500 years, to the Holy Roman Empire. Every time I ever choose a video topic and I think, oh, this is going to be a nice easy one, it's always like, well, the story starts in the Holy Roman Empire. I'm like, here comes f***ing Charlemagne again to ruin my day. I'm not going to go on an in-depth historical tirade about Luxembourg going back like millennia, because it changed hands a ludicrous number of times throughout the years, and particularly during the Holy Roman Empire. So we're going to skip forward to 1795, which I'm aware is still a long time ago, so forget I said anything. At this time, the Duchy of Luxembourg was quite a big region within the Holy Roman Empire, but then the big man himself, Napoleon, steamrolled his way through the territory and declared it to be part of revolutionary France, including it in the newly formed Département de Forêt. It stayed French until France's defeat in 1815, when the Congress of Vienna was held in order to redraw Europe's borders after Napoleon fucked everything up. That Congress decided that Luxembourg would not only be taken back from France and reinstated as its own individual entity, but would also get a promotion from a duchy to a grand duchy. Although this part of its territory would also be stolen by Prussia, because I don't know what these guys are thinking at this point. At the same time, it would also be placed into what's called a personal union with the United Kingdom of the Netherlands, where the Dutch King William I would rule Luxembourg, but it wouldn't officially be part of the Kingdom of the Netherlands. I'm not sure this was officially written into the treaty, but King Billy would also take it upon himself to treat Luxembourg like absolute shit, ignoring its de jure sovereignty and placing crazy high taxes on its citizens. At the same time, in order to keep Prussia sweet, Luxembourg was made a member of the German Confederation, a loose association of fully or partly German-speaking states designed to replace the Holy Roman Empire upon its collapse a few years earlier. This is going to be such a headache when it comes time to edit this video. Skip forward 15 years from the Congress of Vienna and we land in 1830, when this very heavily Catholic chunk of the predominantly Protestant Kingdom of the Netherlands said balls to this sacrilegious orange bollocks and threw themselves a revolution, creating a little something called Belgium, which actually still exists to this day. Not a lot of people know that. And the Grand Duchy of Luxembourg went, yeah, you know what, actually, yeah, stroopwafels, and allowed Belgium to annex most of their territory, although they weren't able to take the capital, Luxembourg City, off King William I. The main reason behind Luxembourg falling in line behind Belgium's independence is because they were also Catholic. That's basically the only reason. But either way, suddenly this weird limbo existed in which Luxembourg was like 95% controlled by the Belgians, but with the capital and largest fortress controlled by the Dutch king, though still technically independent of the Netherlands. The great powers of Europe stopped what they were doing and looked over at this situation and said, "What the f*** are you guys doing?" and organised a big conference in London in 1831 to figure it all out. The main goal of the conference was to formally split Luxembourg, handing part of it to Belgium to keep permanently, and leaving the rest to continue being the Grand Duchy of Luxembourg, though still not independent and remaining under the control of King William I. From this conference came the Treaty of the 18 Articles, the first attempt by the great powers to figure out where to actually draw the border between these two entities. It was a clumsy, badly drawn border that split communities and linguistic groups, leaving a number of towns stranded on what they saw as the wrong side of the divide. The Netherlands hated this proposal in particular and told the great powers to go do one, and so everyone had to go back to the drawing board for a few years, despite the fact that the Belgians had accepted the treaty. However, not all Belgians were happy with the proposed border. Constant de Hofschmidt, which is the most Benelux name I've ever heard, who was a deputy in the Belgian Chamber of Representatives from the constituency of Bastogne, was raging about the prospect of one specific town being snatched away from Belgium and given to Luxembourg during the deal, Martelange. And from this day forth, de Hofschmidt vowed that never again will he allow this random Luxembourgish village to be snatched away from Belgian administrative control. A lot of people just dream of owning a nice house or having a loving family, but de Hofschmidt was just built different, I guess. Basically, his argument was that the road connecting Arlon to Bastogne, which served as the main artery through the region, was vital to Belgium's economy and had to remain fully on Belgian soil in any future border proposals. And the problem with the Treaty of the 18 Articles is that it handed Martelange to Luxembourg, despite the fact that part of the Arlon to Bastogne road runs right through the middle of it. So that means that Belgium would lose control of some of the Arlon to Bastogne road. And over the next few years, the great powers and both the Belgian and Dutch governments kept drawing and redrawing the map of the region, with the Dutch king repeatedly rejecting all proposals, until in 1839 they finally got both sides to agree on a border. The famed Treaty of London in 1839, also more clunkily known in French as the Treaty of the 24 Articles, was a border agreement accepted by both sides, splitting Luxembourg in two. Half went to Belgium, becoming the modern-day Belgian province of Luxembourg, while the rest became the Grand Duchy of Luxembourg, which still exists to this day with these exact borders. And it turns out they sort of listened to de Hofschmidt's pleas. It's really strange. The treaty's wording still listed Martelange among the towns that, quote, shall belong to the Grand Duchy of Luxembourg, so de Hofschmidt didn't get his way there. But it also said that the entirety of the Arlon to Bastogne road itself would remain Belgian. And this is just a clear contradiction that makes no sense and was obviously going to cause problems down the line, so it's no surprise that we ended up with this mad situation. This would all be officially demarcated by surveyors in 1843 under the Treaty of Maastricht. God almighty, these dorks love the treaty. This sort of vested interest, one of dozens taken into account for this whole saga, made the demarcation of the new border a complete nightmare.
When surveyors were first sent out in 1843 to actually mark the physical border, as laid out by the Treaty of London in 1839, Martelange and the Arlon to Bastogne road posed a huge problem, because Martelange was supposed to be given to Luxembourg, but the road it sat on, the Arlon to Bastogne road, which is this, was supposed to be given to Belgium. Their solution? They just made the road the frontier itself, marking the border between Belgium and Luxembourg along the eastern gutter of this road, which is quite fitting for this absolute shit show of diplomacy.
Everything to the west of the road became the Belgian town of Martelange, and everything to the east became the town of Rombach-Martelange in Luxembourg. Then the border took a hard right up the river Sur, and we all breathed a sigh of relief. And before anyone comes for me, this is the official story written out for me by the tourist board of Martelange. There are theories online that the Treaty of London ballsed up the Martelange border because it used old or outdated maps, and this is not true. It's just an urban legend. Or considering where we are in the world, it's just a rural legend. Should I edit that joke out?
Either way, this border, laid out by the Treaty of London and ratified by the Treaty of Maastricht, still serves as the modern-day border between Belgium and Luxembourg, with Luxembourg having declared independence a couple of decades after the Treaty of London was signed. The creation of the EU and the implementation of the Schengen area has effectively dissolved hard borders between EU member states, but that doesn't mean that their laws don't still massively vary from country to country. And that means that Martelange, being on the border of two EU member states, has developed a few quirks, the most obvious one of which is this. Yes, this is a row of 12 petrol stations, while the other side of the street, the Belgian side, is just houses. The petrol stations are technically in the Luxembourgish community of Rombach-Martelange, which is basically everything on this side of the border. It's only got a population of about 218, which means there's one petrol station for every 18 people in this community. And some oil companies have attempted to capitalize so heavily on this market that they've got more than one petrol station here. Like Q8, I think Esso have two, Shell definitely have two, and I think so do BP.
This, as you might have guessed, is due to everyone's favorite thing, tax. Luxembourg has a pretty standard level of taxation for most things compared to the rest of the EU, but the two types of taxation it is very lenient on are 1. Corporation tax to attract business, and 2. Excise duties. I won't go into detail, but excise duties are basically taxes levied against the producer rather than the consumer, and are often used to discourage or penalize the production of goods that are damaging to human health or the environment, such as petrol. Some minimum excise duty rates are set by the European Commission,
But their threshold is quite low, and so Luxembourg has chosen basically the lowest possible excise duty on its fuel. As a result, petrol companies in Luxembourg don't necessarily have to pass the excise duty cost on to consumers, and thus fuel is way cheaper, around 19 cents per litre cheaper than neighbouring Belgium. So in a car with a 40-litre petrol tank, you'd be saving around 7 to 8 euros per filling.
And thus Luxembourg has become a hub of what's known as fuel tourism, where cross-continental truckers, road trippers, or even just locals from across the Belgian border are encouraged to come over here and fill up their petrol tanks at greatly reduced prices. In fact, some trucking companies even have a stopover in Luxembourg built into their business model. Such are the savings they can make if they refill here.
And all these petrol companies are taking advantage of this touristic trade by shoving as many petrol stations as they can up against the border to tempt Belgians in like a really depressing, climate-destroying siren call.
Another fun one is alcohol. Luxembourg has significantly lower excise duty than Belgium on spirits. It has about a third of the amount of excise duty as Belgium on beer, and it has no excise duty at all on wine. So these petrol stations have become like booze outlets with like every form of alcohol that you could ever imagine. It's like a sort of weird capitalist fever dream in this place.
Interestingly, this also means that Luxembourg has some of the highest alcohol consumption rates per capita in the EU, and the single highest rate of emissions per capita in the EU. But that's really sort of a meaningless statistic in this context, because a huge percentage of that figure is just outsiders filling up in Luxembourg and then driving back into other countries. That accounts for both booze and petrol.
Belgium is not particularly happy with this situation in Martelange, or Luxembourg in general. Luxembourg's extremely low excise duties and very high average salaries means that Belgium loses not only sales of things like tobacco and petrol to Luxembourg, but also workers. It loses hundreds of millions of euros per year to its little neighbour to the southeast. Either way, it's a completely bizarre sight, with a nice, picturesque Belgian village on one side, and all this, let's be honest, fairly ugly commerce on the Luxembourgish side. And spurred on by the Luxembourgish government, all these oil companies have basically conspired to bulldoze a 9th century village that had tons of interesting history and replace it with this, just to make a bit more money for their shareholders. And so on that note, I'm going to get drunk. But do I choose ethanol or methanol? You decide. In fact, no, don't decide, because I know which one you're going to say, and I'm not doing that.